This is the scene we're going to do today. I'm calling this one Peaceful Waters, and this was stamped onto Kromekote glossy cardstock, and I used Ranger Archival ink to stamp all the stamps and Tombow water-based markers to do the coloring. And so let's begin. I've got a quarter sheet of Kromekote glossy cardstock in my stamping platform. I've got a ruler here to offset it and also a Misty Creative Corner so that I can offset my paper. And I am going to ink up my stamps first with some jet black archival ink. This is an oil-based ink. Okay, I've cleaned off my stamps, and now I'm going to use some archival ink, Fern Green. Okay, I'm going to change now to my island stamp, and I will first ink it up with the black. Okay, I've cleaned off the stamp, and now I'll use my Fern Green. Okay, and looking at this, I think I'm going to want to also stamp the green on just the regular part of the islands down below. So I'll put it back in my positioner. Okay, and I'll use some hand sanitizer to clean off my stamping platform. Okay, now it takes archival ink a while to dry on glossy cardstock, and so I'm going to give this a chance until when I look at it, it doesn't look like it's wet anymore, and we'll be back. Okay, and I've cut out some quick masks, and then I'm going to use Forget-Me-Not archival ink with this water ripple. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, and now I'm gonna let everything sit probably for, maybe 5 minutes, and we'll be back. Okay, now I'm gonna add some of these small trees just to these gullies on these foreground islands. So I'll just put a quick mask. I'm going to use my black archival ink. Okay, and I'm going to want to stamp some green over that, over these black trees that I just stamped. So I'm going to use my little stamping positioner right here, and I am just going to ink it up and then stamp in the corner of the positioner onto the acrylic plate that comes with the positioner. And so that leaves an imprint of the stamp. And so now what I'm going to do is I want to stamp the green on top of it. Okay, so I'm going to use my Fern Green. And I'll ink up my little trees. And then what I'll do is I will just put this over them where I'm going to want to stamp them again. Then I'll put this on, and then I can just stamp right over the original set of trees. Oops. I can tell you right now, I have forgot to put my masks on. So I'm going to get a Q-tip here for these places where I stamped below, and just, while this ink is still somewhat wet, just kind of smear. And unfortunately, I'm also smearing the black, but for the rest of these, I will put my mask on. Okay, and for these areas down here where I forgot to put a mask down when I was stamping them, I'm going to just put some trees under there. All right, now I want to give this ink a really good chance to dry because I could tell that, you know, it was smearing when I was trying to smear that green down here. So I'm going to give this archival ink probably a couple of hours to dry before I start coloring anything in, and we'll be back. Okay, it's been about an hour, and so I'm going to start to color this now. I'm going to use some Tombow markers. I'm going to start with using number 177, which is a green, and my N00, which is the colorless blender. I'll start by putting the colorless blender down on the area that I'm interested in. And then I will, in the dark area, put down the dark color, and then I will spread it out to the lighter area with the colorless blender. I'd like to add some earth tone colors now, so I'm going to use some 977 Tombow marker, as well as the colorless blender again. Okay, and I'm going to go back now to the green. This is again number 177. Okay, now I'm going to use number 443 and my colorless blender. And so and again, I put down the colorless blender first onto the paper, and then I'll put the color down in the darkest areas and blend it out to the lighter areas with the colorless blender. Okay, now I'll use the same blue, the 443 and the colorless blender to work on the sky. And again, starting by putting the colorless blender down, and then I'm concentrating the darker color on the edges and blending it inwards with the colorless blender. Okay, next I'm going to add some white pigment ink, and I'll use a Fantastics applicator for this. Okay, now I'll use a Q-tip to just add some clouds into the sky. And now I'm using the Q-tip to soften the white that I put down by the islands and also to add a little fog or mist to the island areas. And in the areas where I've got too much pigment ink, I blot it off and soften it down a bit with a little piece of wadded up paper towel. Okay, now I'll use a white gel pen to just add some dot highlights to the trees. Okay, I'm going to give this white pigment ink a chance to dry, and so we'll be back in a bit. Okay, it's been a few minutes. The pigment ink isn't completely dry, but I want to stamp my foreground trees now. So I'll start by doing the Archival black. And I'll clean off the stamp between stamps because I don't want to get any of the white pigment ink onto my black stamp pad. Okay, and now I'm going to use the Fern green ink. And then I'm going to try and line things up as well as possible and stamp over the original stamp. Okay, and I'm going to get my white gel pen again. Even though the ink isn't completely dry yet, I want to add just some dot highlights to these trees. Okay, and I want to put some birds up in the sky too, so I'm going to use my black Archival ink for that. I'll also add the little canoeist, again using my black Archival ink. And I'll also sign and date it. Okay, and I'm going to give this a couple of hours to completely dry, and we'll be back. Okay, I've let this dry now for an hour, and so I'm going to take it out and spray it with some Krylon UV resistant clear acrylic coating, and we'll be back. Okay, and with this oil-based ink, the acrylic coating leaves a sticky residue, and so I'm going to go out and spray some Krylon workable fixative on top, which will hopefully take away the stickiness, and we'll be back. Okay, it's still tacky, so I'm going to put another coating of the workable fixative on. Okay, just a teeny tiny bit of stick is left, so I'm going to go put one more layer of the workable fixative on. And then I'm going to let it dry completely, and we'll be back. Okay, after 3 layers of the workable fixative, it's not sticky anymore. And I've matted it onto some white printer paper and then some black cardstock. And here's the final scene. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye!